Welcome to the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast, the only local politically conservative and liberty-minded program in Kootenai County where we expose political power players, politicians, elected officials, influencers. We're your hosts, Dan and Dawna Wilson. I'm here to screen your questions and comments. Tonight, we will be taking your calls throughout the program. That number is 208-366-4671. It's right down there at the bottom of your screen if you can't memorize that. Also, you can drop questions and comments into the comments section at any time along the way, all throughout the program on whichever platform you're watching. And if you're watching with us live tonight, be sure to click that share button on whichever platform you're watching, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, X, or Instagram. And if you're listening back on our podcast, make sure to catch us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. It's more fun and interactive that way. And then subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get those auto notifications when we go live. And now here's your host, Dan Wilson.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have finally arrived at this date, time, and location wherever you are every week, 7 p.m. And time doesn't matter when you're listening on the replay. I'm glad you joined us for Liberty Without Compromise broadcast number 15. In the words of Thomas Paine, these are the times that try men's souls. And let me tell you, today has been a major pain in the rump.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know, but my new Windows computer, new, as in not even 30 plus days old, did an update and then it just did nothing.
Don't we all go into a panic attack when Windows arbitrarily does an update? Or you think, oh, now I've definitely waited beyond the point. I better do the update, but it's like major anxiety.
I believe that Apple is a superior product. I was a Windows guy forever.
Yeah.
And then finally, I'm so sick. Bill Gates, not only are you a horrible individual as a human, but you also make horrible products. So, but despite all that, we are going to persevere through this. Mm-hmm. We are going to, my mouse doesn't work. So I'm toggling back and forth.
Oh, man.
But you know what? There are a lot worse things that can happen besides technological failure. I think that we have our phones fixed tonight.
We're going to give it a shot.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, we're going to pretend. I don't know. Yeah. I think you'll have to decrease my wages.
What happens when the local Republican Central Committee starts ejecting its own members from onside the board? Mm-hmm. Or the committee?
Yeah, that's a provocative
That's going to be something we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Bob Norris and the helicopter that has not flown in over 6 months. My letter to the Board of County Commissioners. We're also going to talk about immigration or illegal immigration and exportation. Where are we at in Kootenai County? What is Bob Norris not doing? That's something we're going to want to talk about. And then, of course, we're going to talk about
Somebody
whether or not
somebody asked you that last week. What is Bob Norris not doing?
Well,
you didn't even hesitate to answer that one.
We're going to finish up tonight.
Yeah.
Talking about why I believe that the KCRCC is disingenuous when they try to claim that they are holding these town halls so that people can converse with their town reps. We have intel from inside of what went on last night at the monthly committee meeting. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, it's not shocking, but there's a lot of divisiveness going on inside right now. And once you know, Brent Reagan does not seem to be able to have a handle on it. He's not a uniter. He is a divider. I wonder what it's going to look like here in another 6 months at the KCRCC.
But he's driven premium sports cars all his life.
Oh, you mean the Tesla?
Yeah. Well, I mean, before that,
some people are concerned because all of a sudden he came out and was bantering with a local resident on Nextdoor that he owns the fastest Tesla that Tesla builds. And I guess that's a good reason to be friend with the sheriff so you don't get tickets, maybe.
Oh, yeah, you can just go fast.
And then
you get a pardon.
He's been a follower, apparently, of Tesla forever. And some people, and I think they're extreme, and you know exactly who you are, we're breaking my phone down yesterday, trying to say, hey, was Brent Reagan a communist or a liberal or some other moniker all the way back in 2016?
Because he had the
because he had a Tesla.
Yeah.
Because before conservatives supposedly didn't like Tesla, and now that Elon Musk is working with Doge, everybody wants to rush out and get a Tesla. I'm not sorry. I will only have an electric vehicle when there is no other mode of transportation available. That's how much I dislike electric cars. I'm certain they're cool, whatever the science behind them. I'm old school. I think it was a travesty. One of the worst things in American history is when Dodge quit making the Challenger.
Oh.
And now they're going to some electric piece of crap. So I hope eventually this electric fad goes away. But no, I don't think that...
you could just have one, it's just like an extra car.
I don't think that Brent
just for
Reagan
fun or just in case
was a liberal back 2015, 2016 when he owned a Tesla.
Because, not because he owned a Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we were in Seattle for a few days. That was enlightening.
We're going to be real rhinos now because we actually admitted to going to Seattle.
Yeah. Beautiful city.
To meet our handlers.
I learned that everybody wears short pants. There were a lot of short pants in Seattle. Sometimes you get on me for pants that aren't full. You're like, what is this trend?
I get on you.
What is this trend with the short? I'm like, babe, it's a thing. It's a thing.
Look like two swabby pants.
They are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in Seattle, short pants.
Everybody?
The men and the women.
Everybody?
Short pants and Chelsea boots. And then we stopped by, we kind of did like a self-guided, what I call it, like a coffee crawl is what I called it. So we're like, yeah, let's go and get little 4 or 8 ounce cups and hit as many different coffee places as we can that aren't necessarily Starbucks. And that led us to one in Seattle that came up in my searches. That was a place called Storyville Coffee. And it was weird. Like, we've walked all up and down there near Pike Place, hadn't seen it, but we're going to follow the address. We're walking there. We're using the walking map. And I'm like, it tells us we're right here. Where is it? And it was kind of fun because it was a little bit of a scavenger hunt. And I said, well, it does say it's on the 2nd floor. So it was tucked away in there. And I think the only way up, I didn't see a set of stairs. It was an elevator to take 1 floor up. So
it was open to the public, yeah.
Yeah, open to the public. So we get on the elevator. I'm becoming increasingly more excited. This is like your 5-star and the line out the door kind of a place. So this must be good. Get in the elevator. The door is this far from closing. And we see one hand just right through right before. And we all know, what that does with the elevator door. And
this is a small car, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not a large elevator car.
Yeah. And hear a voice that says, is it okay if I get on? So, of course, Dan, being the gentleman that he is, come on in. So then the door, she kind of squeezes through and the door continues to open full and one after the other. It was a group of a total of 5 of them are now on the elevator.
And they were large women.
Did you say that?
I just did.
You just did.
I'm describing facts. They were large women, and I was pinned up against the back of the car.
So now we were like comfy cozy in the elevator. So the door opens, and again, not knowing the lay of the land and really what that door is going to open to, you realize it opens straight into the back of the line for Storyville Coffee. So one would think that we allowed this group onto the elevator. Well, of course, they're exiting prior to we are, and you would think, well, the kind thing or even logical thing to do would be, you guys go ahead. Because, now they're in queue in front of us or in position to do that. You guys go ahead. But no, that didn't happen. So now we're in an already long line behind a group of 5 who we let get on. And yeah. So we waited probably 20 minutes plus. Yeah. Again, I'm thinking this must be a really
gourmet Gavalia grade.
Their own brand, their own roast. They'll ship it to you. This is much sought after all over the world. Finally get up to our spot in line, and there aren't various sizes. You just it's all 8 ounce cup of coffee. So what do we end up with? We got a couple of Americanos. Dan takes 1 sip.
It was cold.
It's not hot.
It was cold.
It's not hot. And this is a plain Americano. He's drinking his coffee black. It's not hot.
Yeah.
So $8 for a $1 an ounce cup of coffee.
Yeah.
We make our exit, crestfallen. Dan finds the nearest garbage can. That coffee goes, he was done. He was done. It was a fun trip to Seattle,
The moral of the story is drink whiskey.
Just, yeah, it'll always be right. It'll be right every time.
Mm-hmm. We met a really cool guy when we were out eating one night.
That we did.
And you know, I think these are divine meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy from San Diego, his name's Brian. Hi, Brian, if you're watching. We had a great dinner, great conversation, found that we have a commonality in love of tiki bars and Frankie's Tiki Lounge in Vegas and cigar bars.
Yes.
So we ran into him 2 nights. Great guy, but great conversation about liberty. Now, why does Liberty Without Compromise broadcast exist? I got a segue. I got to kind of break it. I don't know if we're done with talking.
No, that was good because we met Brian, and that was something that we very naturally talked about.
Liberty Without Compromise is to continue to inspire people with the message that your liberty is extremely sacred. And your founders worked very hard to give you the framework in order to maintain your liberty, to put checks on government. And we live here at the Liberty Without Compromise network. We live as true Americans that are free. We have the liberty to go and pursue those things that we find necessary. We have the liberty to go after those that we do not agree with, that we think are doing terrible jobs in local government and leadership. We go after corruption, and we talk with people who we may not necessarily align with. We don't necessarily adopt their ideologies, but we find those things that we do have commonality with, and then we capitalize on those in order to spur each other on and to maintain great civil discourse in this marketplace of ideas. So we do not tell anybody that you cannot have a voice at the table. I may not agree with you, but you will get your say. But you may be challenged, just like I expect you to challenge me. And I don't have all the answers. Sometimes somebody will hit me with a question and I have to really think hard and ask myself, okay, is this something I grew up believing because it was passed down to me by my parents or my peers? Or do I really believe this because I have searched it out, I have lived it or experienced it? When we live in a culture that is ever changing and not for the good, the worst thing in the world to do is to bundle up yourselves, segregate yourselves, and then try to be a bully pulpit for anybody else around you that does not align. Your best defense is to win people's minds and hearts through your arguments and to meet people wherever they are. I believe that's what Jesus did often. Jesus always spoke the truth, just to be clear. Jesus always spoke truth. But he was not afraid to get down and have conversations with those that were considered to be unworthy of having conversations with. And that's my current problem right now in Kootenai County and in the state of Idaho. I've observed things going on for far too long, and the state GOP needs a cleaning out. People with good intentions wanting to do moral things have lost their compass. They've lost their ability to look and figure out whether or not they are representing just Christians or whether they're representing people that don't have a organized religion. And yes, I want moral things in our government. The founders were adamant when they said, this government is for a moral and righteous people. But remember, you cannot force your conscience on other folks. So there is that fine line, and we run right up to that fine line many times. And it's sometimes even for me hard to be able to articulate, okay, where is that line? But we have to continually talk about it. We have to realize that other people have convictions and are accountable to God. Whether or not you believe in God or not, I'm here to tell you that every man and woman is accountable to the Creator God.
And on this, we've got a question coming in from William on Facebook. Is the Constitution your priority? Is it liberty or the right to be free under the Fourth Amendment?
Is the Constitution my priority? Well, I want to say that the Constitution is a supreme law of the land. So when it comes to citizen Dan Wilson, and I'm separating myself as follower of Christ Dan Wilson, but as citizen Dan Wilson, I want to continually proclaim that the supreme law of the land is continually upheld, and part of that Constitution is our beloved Bill of Rights, which are those limits the government has set in place and are demanded to protect, which is our rights to life, liberty, and property, as broken down in the original first 10 of the Bill of Rights. So that's where I stand on it. And yeah, the Fourth Amendment is extremely precious to me, as much as the first and the second. I don't delineate any of the original Bill of Rights as being less or more important than another. But I believe for somebody that was a lawman for 12 years, I held my oath very, very sacred. And as far as I know, I never, ever intentionally violated anybody's First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, so on and so forth. So
there was some action going down at a KCRCC. I don't know what they call their
monthly committee meeting.
Monthly committee meetings. And a couple of precinct committeemen were expelled from that. I think you were able to get a little bit more info or intel as to what exactly happened there last night, because that chatter is going around social media and people have heard little bits of this and that.
Well, we need to go back. And so part of what I was saying earlier when I was talking about what I take exception with local politics is the KCRCC has a lot of good people in it that mean well, but they have lost their way and their leader is horrible. The leader must be removed. Brent Reagan is long past his prime. He needs to go, and somebody with a little more common sense, needs to be replacing him. As you may or may not recall, if you're following Kootenai County politics, about a year ago during the primary, Sheriff Robert Bob Norris allowed his Deputy Sheriff's Association to illegally use the Kootenai County Sheriff's badge in a mailer that went out to the residents in Kootenai County, urging them to vote for several candidates in elected positions. We're talking about county commissioners and sheriff and prosecutor, but also precinct committeemen. Now, every county is broken up by these little neighborhoods, if you will, that are called precincts. And at each one of those precincts, there is a precinct leader that you get to vote for. Of course, Kootenai County is predominantly Republican, and the Deputy Sheriff's Association aligned themselves with a group called the North Idaho Republicans, who believe that the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee, the KCRCC, has become extremely right-wing, intolerant, tyrannical extremists. And so they have banded together to form another group that's more moderate. They call themselves similar to the Reagan Republicans. But they were the direct beneficiaries of this Deputy Sheriff's Association mailer that went out. And it was basically what I would call stabbing in the back the KCRCC, who had endorsed Bob Norris and Bruce Matari, County Commissioner Bruce Matari and Special Deputy Bruce Matari. But there was, banner back and forth as to, well, I didn't give them permission to endorse PCs. But as a result, and it was a good thing, the PCs that were lost were roughly about 30. And so North Idaho Republicans that aligned themselves with the North Idaho Republicans were successful in getting elected into their precincts and joined the KCRCC. So there's this kind of battle that's going on now, right? Between, I'm going to call them extremists. That's not what I believe they are, but just for lack of a better word, they're far, far right wing, and the more moderate. Some people would call the moderate rhinos. I think that rhinos are in every faction of the GOP. Nobody holds claim to them. But anyway, so there's been war going on for quite a while. They had the town hall several weeks ago that erupted in chaos and disaster. And So there's discussion back and forth as to the validity of what KCRCC's message and what their stance has been, whether or not, we're talking about open to the public versus private. So, things get a little hot and contentious. But last night, there was a vote, from what I'm being told by several sources, to expel brand new PC Kathleen Tillman, who has been absent at the past 4 months meeting due to, I believe, the death of her husband. And so they're wanting to kick her off the KCRCC, I guess, out of the organization. I don't know legally if they can. I don't know, again, whether it's complete expulsion or what. But that caused a little bit of blowback. And so another lady that was pretty vocal saying, hey, we have another committee person in here let me restate that. We should allow this person to grieve because another PC had a death in their family, and they were allowed to be gone for a while. Then that PC who was being referred to got upset that he was being referenced, and there was some infighting going on, and she said something to him that was I'd probably be a little hot as well, but it was accusatory, and she got up and left. And then my understanding is they censored her, as well as are trying to expel her as well. Again, not certain the legality of that, not certain what that means. We're just now finding out that information. But in our slide number 1, we're going to look at something that I found interesting. So this is taken off of the KCRCC's own website. And we see that there are numerous precincts by number and who the representative is by that precinct. And out of the entire list, there happens to be 2 vacancies. Don't know if it's a coincidence. Don't know whether or not it has anything to do with it. But I will note that I was not able to find either one of these members, Kathleen Tillman or Kelly Palm, on the list. And we have a vacancy in 314 and 417. I tried looking up and finding out if those names coincided with each of those positions, was not successful. So if drop us a message and we'll correct the record. So again, that's pretty quick. If that happened last night and it's true that they've already expelled them, they've taken them off the website. I thought that it was, I don't know, again, it's circumstantial evidence, but it was pretty fascinating to see that their names happen to be nowhere on that precinct list. So
it seemed like quick action.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I guess that we're going to find out. Is this the beginning? And, oh, by the way, those are 2 North Idaho Republican PCs. Yeah. So I failed to probably articulate that very precisely, but that is what we're looking at. Are we looking at Brent trying and attempting to do an expulsion of the North Idaho Republicans, the Dirty 30 as they refer to them? I don't know. Kind of interesting. So
the helicopter hasn't flown in over 6 months.
It hasn't.
What is going on with that? I mean, you've given us periodic updates. This is something that was approved by a board of county commissioners for a certain amount of money to go into this program, like a cease and desist with the memo of understanding they had with Spokane and then also Two Bear Air to have access to helicopter in case of emergency. So we've got our own whirly bird.
Yeah.
But it has what's the latest?
In 2022, the brainchild of Lieutenant Mark Ellis from the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and Bob Norris went before the Board of County Commissioners, who at that time was Filios, Duncan, and Brooks, as I recall. And they basically concocted this harebrained idea, hey, we can't use Spokane anymore because they're just not reliable. Had absolutely zero evidence to back that statement. But they had a solution, which is a bunch of benevolent businessmen were going to get together, donate $100,000 apiece. The Coeur d'Alene Tribe was going to donate another $200,000. They came before the commissioner, said, hey, we're going to go out and purchase this helicopter. We're going to take this private organization and we're going to provide pilots and the helicopter at no cost to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office for our own air support unit, and it won't cost the county anything except for $10,000 a year that we were paying to Spokane County Sheriff's Office for their superior air support unit, which included fixed wing aircraft and a helicopter that had hoist capabilities. The helicopter that this volunteer organization purchased didn't have a spotlight, didn't have FLIR, forward-looking infrared, and it didn't, wasn't equipped like they needed it to. So in the first discussion, Commissioner Filio said, "Hell no, I'm not gonna for it." Duncan and Brooks were way more optimistic. Election took place. Filios was replaced by Special Deputy Bruce Matari, and in February of 2023, the county commissioners signed off on entering into a memo of understanding with this Kootenai Regional Air Support Unit that is oversaw by Lieutenant Mark Ellis, who has an ownership of some sort in the aircraft. Then they went to the commissioners and begged them for $100,000 civil asset forfeiture money to equip the helicopter that they own, that the county doesn't own, with spotlight and forward-looking infrared. And it was going to be the greatest thing in the world. We're going to use it for search and rescue. We're no longer going to have to use the helicopter from Spokane. We're not going to have to use the helicopter from Montana to Bear Air that was, basically it was a grant from a billionaire that allows a helicopter to be used. So we were promised all of these things, and the memo of understanding with this Kootenai Regional Air Support Unit was executed around February. Soon thereafter, they terminated that MOU and wrote up another MOU. Now, I've discussed this many, many times, and all the tentacles, whether it's allowing the tribe to take over primary law enforcement of the tribal lands for both tribal and non-tribal members, and Sheriff Bob Norris cross-deputizing those federal law enforcement officers, specifically what it looks like a pay-to-play scheme.
Yeah.
But more importantly, this helicopter has not flown now for 6 months. It has not flown since September. I think we have slide number 2, if I can get my cursor to work here. This is just taken off FlightAware. Anybody can look up flightaware.com, type in Able 1. It'll come up with the history, so you don't have to just take my words. I also doubled up and requested from the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office flight logs. So we know that this helicopter has not flown other than for routine maintenance, which they've been doing on this helicopter since September. So we're 6 months of non-use of a helicopter that we were told was going to be more reliable and better for the county than Spokane County, their air unit. So I have been following this. I'm concerned about, obviously, lapse in insurance. The sheriff's office went before the Board of County Commissioners, requested $10,000 or more to hire an attorney to advise them on how to write contracts better for, these air support units. It's a big mess. It's amateur hour at the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and the Board of County Commissioners. So I've been advocating that we need to get rid of this air unit and go back to our agreement with Spokane. Kootenai County does not need an air support unit. If we did, it would have flown in the last 6 months.
Yes. And I think Damon joining us on Facebook, he's got a fair question. And I think I've seen this in some of his chatter before, because as a resident of Kootenai County, you think, can we give this program the benefit of the doubt? Can having our own access to our own helicopter be a good thing for search and rescue? I think you've really explained why it's not that having access to a helicopter cannot be a good thing. It's the way that this program came to fruition and what it means for the county as a liability. And
I don't have enough time tonight to go over all the particulars, right? Because it's a very complex deal.
Well, Damon, I'm going to put your question up on the screen, but what I will tell you is if you go to theidahosheriff.com, and there is a search bar there on the home page, and type in helicopter. I mean, that really is all it needs. And we've got research articles and at-length explanations as to why this particular helicopter program is something that Dan has spoken out on and worked to expose for over a year. during 2024.
Yeah.
So I think that'll probably help settle you more about, you might think, well, I agree with a lot of what this Dan Wilson guy has to say, but I don't understand his beef with the helicopter.
The biggest problem is we don't own this helicopter. It is owned by a private group, and this private group has loaned it out, but we don't control, as Kootenai County does not control that aircraft. There's problems with licensing. There's problems with insurance. I've, in essence, through multiple records requests over several months and contacting county commissioners, nobody has ever been able to provide, per what the memo of understanding is, their official insurance policy. And I believe that the Kootenai County taxpayer is at huge risk and exposure right now. I believe that it's evident after months and months and months of me saying this publicly that, Darren Murphy, in-house counsel for Kootenai County, went before the county commissioner and said, yeah, we got to bring somebody that's an expert in aircraft in. But, this idea that it's only costing us $10,000, the bigger question is why has this bird not flown for 6 months? And if we were using Spokane, which, Spokane Air Unit is out at Phelps Field. It's only from an aircraft standpoint, it's only a few more minutes to the east. And they have a better funding source. They get federal grants. They have state-of-the-art infrared. They have state-of-the-art spotlights, all the equipment that is needed on these helicopters, including a hoist. The current helicopter does not have a hoist, which means they can fly to a mountaintop and see somebody, but they cannot extract that person. It doesn't have the capability to do it. So they have to call in another resource to come out and bail them out. In fact, not too long ago, last summer, they did just that. They had to call in another unit. So this was nothing more than a group of guys that wanted to run their Los Angeles style air support unit. Captain Mike Bauer, who did run LA County's air support unit back in the late 90s and early 2000s, an expert on that, as well as Rick Whitehead. And we have several others in the county retired, and they've all unanimously agreed that Spokane is the best agreement that we could have for a air support unit. But Kootenai County is not large enough to put the millions of dollars a year that are required. Plus, drone technology. We have more drones now than we did previously. And oftentimes the drones are more efficient.
Well, think about the expediency. If all your helicopter, or the one here in Kootenai County, can do is locate, the expediency to locate, but then they've got to do that with a drone. Mm-hmm. I mean, if that's the objective, it seems like they can get into smaller spaces and expedite it, and then have access to a helicopter that with hoist capabilities, like you said. I put a link to that article, the research article regarding the Bob Norris KCSO helicopter program, into the comment section. So I know that Damon appreciated the explanation on that. He can see where you're coming from, but also for any others of you who are listening who want more information on that, you can click on the link.
I think one of the things that you also need to look at, and this is more of grave concern, is we know through records request that after the tribe gave that $200,000 to put them over the line in order for this nonprofit to purchase this air support unit at the request of Bob Norris, they requested through their attorneys to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office that they want to take over law enforcement services for all of tribal lands. I've explained this before without getting too far in the weeds, but Idaho is one of those states where if you have tribal lands, the sheriff of the county patrols those lands. You have non-tribal members that own property on tribal lands, believe it or not. They pay taxes to Kootenai County. And if you're a non-tribal member and you need law enforcement support, you should be able to pick up the phone and expect that a deputy will be dispatched. If you happen to be a tribal member, then it's appropriate that dispatches you a tribal police officer. But Kootenai County, Bob Norris, under his leadership, right after this $200,000 donation was made, again, I don't have proof that donation was a bribe or pay to play, but I'm not a new kid to the block. I know what things look like. I know what they smell like. and I can make observations and conclusions based off of what's currently at hand. And it has never been proven otherwise by the Bob Norris administration. Remember that law enforcement officers, more specifically, tribal police officers, are federal law enforcement. Think of it kind of a government inside a government. And when you look at the totality of what Bob Norris did, is he cross-deputized these federal law enforcement officers and took away deputies that the citizens of Kootenai County, the living on tribal lands, were paying for, and left them high and dry. We've heard it. We've heard it firsthand from many of the residents who have been told, hey, we're going to have to send somebody all the way from Worley. If you're in Harrison and you're on tribal land, that's a long, long way. So we're going to go to the next slide real quick here. And I'm going to go ahead and read on the second page of slide number 2, real quick, my letter to the Board of County Commissioners. I've never heard anything back from them, but I do want to put this officially to the record for all of you out there. I sent it on Thursday, March 6th. This was actually a follow-up to another email that I sent that I did not receive any kind of response to a month earlier. This is sent to Leslie Duncan and Mark Eberline. No sense sending it to Bruce Matari, since Bruce Matari is the special deputy of Bob Norris.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Commissioners. Considering the upcoming annual renewal date for the Kootenai Regional Air Support Unit Memo of Understanding, I wanted to bring to your attention the following. Number one, it's my understanding through recent public records requests obtained from the KCSO that the Kootenai Regional Air Support Unit has not flown a mission for KCSO since September 12, 2024, or 6 months. And a check with FlightAware concerning Able One also indicates no significant flights beyond what appears to be maintenance flights since 9/12 of 24. Due to the fact that the aircraft has not been in service and available to the KCSO for approximately half a year, and considering the fact that KC is paying $10,000 per year of taxpayers' money to the Kootenai Regional Air Support Unit for services we are not receiving, I would like to know if it is the intention of the Board of County Commissioners to continue this agreement with the Kootenai Regional Air Support Unit, or if the MOU will be terminated. I cannot see the legitimacy of continuing to fund and rely on an asset from an organization that cannot provide services 365 days a year. I believe that if it is the position of KCSO and KC that an air support unit is needed, Spokane County Sheriff's Office Air Support Unit is a far more reliable choice with superior aircraft and helicopters that have hoist capabilities, which KRSU does not possess, for the same price as what we are paying to Kootenai Regional Air Support Unit for the current MOU. Sincerely, Dan Wilson. Now, maybe you can go to a separate slide and take camera off me, because since this has been a technical day, I got to replug my headphones in.
Oh, it's
so let me know when you're off me so I can duck under my table.
I can't take the camera off of you, but here's what I can say. We're going to be coming up in a segment here shortly. We've got Bob Norris, who made a post a couple of days ago, and the caption on his post was "Deport, deport, deport."
Oh yeah.
I'm not trying to change the subject from this.
You're all good to go
now. If you need more time, nope. I got more, because I know we also ate too many pastries in Seattle, so I got something to say about that.
Okay. So
I know it's like the hot button topic. Well, we visited Seattle, so we said, we're gonna be a little less careful. I'm gonna enjoy my time. And anybody who's been, on Pike Street, they've got all the bakeries and the smell of fresh bread, baked goods, pastries, and cinnamon all blended together. So we found one that was our favorite. And so each morning we were there, we're going to get up and get coffee and pastries. Anyway, so you come home, you come home after a few days of that. And what have I done? What have I done?
I have zero guilt.
I'm not saying, guilt, but what have I done? Time to get back on track. So what I know I can always go to for here, real smooth transition here. What I always know I can go toward and never feel bad about is to have my sweet snack anytime during the day. And it is the midday squares. We appreciate that they are an affiliate for us here at Liberty Without Compromise. There's a link there in the comments section if you want to get your hands on some of these delicious midday squares. They've got, I think, 5 or 6 different flavors. There's like brownie batter, cookie dough, peanut butter chocolate bar. So whatever you need to satisfy your craving, it's the better way to do it. And it keeps it in moderation, full of healthy ingredients. Functional chocolate bar, Midday Squares. The link is in the comment section. It's going to save you 15% off your order. Time
And
for me to order more for us.
Well, the reason that we can, without guilt, have pastries, which are a once in a couple of years.
Once in a blue moon.
I think it's been 10 years since I've actually had one of those pastries. But the reason why is because the majority of the time we were eating Midday Squares.
Yes. It's not an all or nothing mentality. It's you got to say what is it that I'm doing most of the time to take care of my health.
Yeah.
That's important to both Dan and I, so you're going to hear a little bit about that on the program. I want to remind you, Dan's going to finish this segment regarding the helicopter. Coming up, we are going to be talking about Bob Norris and the Border Patrol and whether or not he's joined in with the ICE 287G program. And if you have something burning where you want to chime in on that upcoming topic, our number to the program is 208-366-4671, scrolling right there at the bottom of your screen. You want to chime in on that, and we will put you in the queue for a phone call. Did you just put a naughty word up on this?
Matthew.
Daniel.
That's not nice. That's not
Did
nice.
that catch you by surprise?
No, liberty without compromise. But look,
Matthew, we let your voice be heard.
But that's your one and only. If you use the F-bomb again, you're out of here. So consider yourself warned.
We're mostly a family-friendly program, so we try to keep it on the up and up.
I would encourage you, if you live in Kootenai County, contact your county commissioners, Mark Eberline and Leslie Duncan. I know that Eberline appears that he's not for the helicopter, at least last time I talked with him. It's possible he's changed his opinion on it. But I would urge you to urge them to get rid of this MOU with the Regional Air Support Unit. It is a huge liability. So enough said about that. Now let's talk about Border Patrol in Kootenai County. Deport.
Yeah.
So, one of my absolute, I would say, strongest statements on the campaign trail was that we have been invaded. And I don't care the reason you came here. This is where Dan Wilson's going to say things that are going to make some people upset. And the reality of it is that if you came here to this country illegally, whatever the reason, you must go back. And I said that I would cooperate to the fullest extent possible with the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office in order to aid the deportation of those that are here illegally in violation of the U.S. Constitution. Now, when Bob Norris was on the campaign trail, he also occasionally would mention things about immigration, but normally it was, well, I'm going to talk to my section chief, my Border Patrol agent, and he's going to tell me what's going on. And by the way, we house, all of these Border Patrol holds for Washington, who refuses to allow anybody in Washington State to hold anybody that's here on illegal status. So we take them into our crowded jail here in Kootenai County. But what's funny is that when Trump was sworn in 2020, shortly after I started saying, hey, Bob, what's your plan? Where's your policy? And I was requesting all sorts of policies and anything that has changed in the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office to aid Department of Homeland Security, who's ultimately responsible for all these deportations, and I got nothing. Right. Now, what was offensive to me, and this isn't the records clerk's issue at the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, who are great folks, work real hard, but it was more specifically command that is in charge of what information they're going to allow through a legal records request. And they passed off a marshal agreement, which is for housing inmates, which was done prior to the November 5th election last year. Record checks as of recent there is nothing. Now, going all the way back to August, there was a community town hall that was hosted right here in Idaho, concerns about whether or not a couple of the counties in the state were being cooperative with ICE. Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris was a part of that at the time, even though I had been for months screaming, why are you not joining up with ICE 287G in that program, which helps to expedite exportation of foreign nationals that are here illegally? It went on deaf ears. But at this town hall, where everybody was whipped up and the who's in Kootenai County were on this thing, Bob Norris comes in talking about how he spent all day at the fair and that he was looking into things. And when he was pressed, are you going to be part of 287G? He said, absolutely, 100%. When further pressed,
word for word.
Yeah, when further pressed, he was pressed to say, hey, will you get the rest of the other 43 sheriffs to also participate in ICE 287?
Is this my?
Said, absolutely, yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, I got it. Yeah. I think this is from that response.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Over those months, so we are now at just shy of 8 months. There has been nothing out of the Norris administration. There's been no part of the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office that has officially entered into an agreement with Homeland Security for any operations, let alone the ICE 287G program. And yet, you influencers out there right now, you know who you are. The ladies with the biggest mouths, those that are the, you hang on every word that Senator Lenny has to say, and all the other legislators around here. And Bob Norris, in fact, I think Lauren Walker, Rogue Lou 18. Curious where she's getting her funding. She's got a pretty loud mouth, but
yeah.
She
and seems to invest quite a lot of time, whether that involves editing video, making posts, responding to things that seem to require somebody's almost full-time attention.
Yeah.
So wonder who's paying.
More to come on that here shortly.
Yeah.
But she was running her mouth the other day and she said that I was full of drama.
Yeah.
And she's been pressed several times, and so I'll do it publicly again, because Lauren, I know you're watching. When are you ever going to hold Bob Norris accountable? You want to talk about Dan Wilson being full of drama last year because I'm busting balls all over the county and exposing things? When are you publicly going to come out and ask Bob Norris why he didn't do what he said he was going to do? Or are you merely simping for the Idaho Freedom Foundation and Brent Reagan? Is that what's really going on? And you don't really want to know the truth. You're not really going to hold people accountable. You're not really for what's right. You're just for whatever your handlers are telling you to. Now, maybe you're not. Maybe you just have a ton of time on your hands, but you're disingenuous. Now, last week, right after our broadcast, we know that through the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, they were up in Athol, Idaho, which is the far northeast end of Kootenai County, at the Super One, and they uncovered through a series of events. Some of their events were a little bit questionable to me, but they end up getting 8 foreign nationals, and I believe they jailed 5 of them for exportation. I think that it's important to you guys to know that through records requests, and we'll put that up there on that slide. I think it's slide 3.
Okay. Slide 3.
What's going on is it appears right now that there are operations in Kootenai County going on with, joint task force of Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and Homeland Security, Border Patrol, ICE, where they are allowing Border Patrol agents to ride in Kootenai County vehicles without any kind of agreement.
We've got a caller on hold, so we'll get there to you here.
We're
Just
also looking into a cross-deputization of a Border Patrol agent. We're trying to find out when that agent was sworn in. But my question is why is Bob Norris doing this all on the down low? Is it because he doesn't want to upset some of his donors that run some of these visa programs, these temp worker programs? What exactly is going on? There should be, at a minimum, memos of understanding or memos of agreement on the rules and conditions. There should not be secrecy going on. I am for deporting everybody that's not here legally, just to be clear. but I'm wondering why all the secrecy with the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, more specifically Bob Norris. Nothing, no agreements. Here we are going into April. Where are they, Bob? Or is this indicative again of the slapshod organization that you run, which never seems to be proactive? You're only reactive, kind of like when you were using the LPRs in demo mode for months and months and months until I had to inform the public that you guys were operating those without any policies, without any retention policies, use policies, none of that, So you guys need to look at what's going on. We're going to be exposing more about some of these incidents that the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office has been involved with, specifically with Border Patrol. We're waiting for some of that body-worn camera to come out, and I will keep you updated. But you need to be asking yourself, if you're in this region, why the secrecy, Bob? Why the secrecy?
Well,
I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that it's all panned out? He didn't necessarily need to have a plan in advance, didn't necessarily need to join the IS-287G program, but they've located illegals in a couple different locations now, because the reference he posted about a couple days ago, I think, is in a different spot. Mm-hmm. And so says, deport, deport, deport. Has it all just worked out?
Well, for now.
Yeah.
And kind of like what he said a year ago when he was trying to, when he lied about what I was saying, when he said that I was going to cost this county,
right,
so much money in civil rights violations and civil rights violation lawsuits, because he was trying to imply, which was a complete lie, that I said you can just stop somebody and demand their papers. Mm-hmm. We're not that. Federal government can in certain circumstances, especially in distances from border. But what you have is you have no deputy unless he, in his lawful duties, happens to uncover through his investigation that somebody's presence here is of illegal nature. So it's not current. You have to call in Border Patrol. I suspect that they're doing a lot more than just, hey, I'm going to put a Border Patrol agent in the car and I'm going to stop cars all night long and I may get lucky.
Right.
I'm certain that they're sitting on hot spots and areas that they know. Probably special investigation units is keeping an eye out on things.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just wild to think a handful of months ago our sheriff was saying I don't see a problem.
Yeah, no issue here.
I'm going to toss this phone number out again and explain to you guys. The number is 208-366-4671. When you call that number, I'm going to answer it, but I'm going to have you hang on until we bring you into the conversation. So don't hang up on us.
We don't have a producer.
I don't have a producer in a control room screening the calls and then typing me messages as who it is. So you call that number 208-366-4671. I'll answer it and then just hang on until we bring you up into the program.
After the town hall debacle just a few short weeks ago, where you have the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee hosting at a Coeur d'Alene High School and advertising for this public town hall. Come listen to your state legislators, all Republican, all, I believe, supported by and endorsed by the KCRCC. They were there to listen to the constituents and to share what was going on currently at the state. And of course, there was Dr. Teresa Bornpole that was loud. Several others were loud as well, but of course, she was singled out, targeted. The sheriff did a horrible job in his attempt to eject her, and so on and so forth. Since that time, the KCRCC has repeatedly doubled, tripled, quadrupled down their position that this was a private event. And since it was a private event, they had all this leeway. And you can't shut us down by the proxy veto, by the vocal veto. So, you can't come in and disrupt a meeting. And I believe that. I don't want disruption in any of our town halls. We need to be polite. But the argument was that, we would allow you to ask your question if you did it in turn. So I'm going to say something, and I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm saying, not what you think I'm saying. I want complete order at every one of our events. I don't have any time or room for people being disruptive or disrespectful. But I also know, because I've been in many of these town halls, not only in Idaho, but over the border in Washington State, where it is far more liberal over there, that the conservatives equally will yell and shout when they have these town halls. It's what we do as humans. But to say that the KCRCC was going to hold a public forum and then they wanted to turn it private, they were advertising, no entrance fees, no tickets. They were going to a high school, supposedly to talk to their legislators, because last I checked, none of those representatives work for the KCRCC. They're supposed to be for the people.
And we know that they know how to create RSVP
events,
platforms, RSVP events, because they've done it. If Bob Norris doesn't want you in on his event or his inaugural ball, you better believe you got to put in an RSVP. And if they don't want you there, they'll probably tell you all the seats are full. Like, they have their ways.
Well,
and that didn't happen.
That could be argued, though, that that's Bob Norris and his campaign. But yes, you're right. We have geniuses,
associated people
that are smart. I mean, it's made up of over 70 representatives. So somebody knows.
But it wasn't. It was open to the public.
And let me tell you why I think they're full of crap and I don't believe them. Because I personally was the recipient, as somebody who called themselves a conservative, and you guys have heard my dialogue as far as why I'm rejecting being called a conservative anymore. I think that these titles have gotten out of hand. I'm for liberty. I'm for the Bill of Rights. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I know what my Christian worldview is. But when it comes to what I experienced at the hand of many of the PCs and those that were in their committees at the KCRCC, including the MC of this most recent event, the guy was so over the top. It was horrible. You remember Ed Baharana, but a year ago when they were all coming out and doing their thing against me, a conservative, not somebody that was a liberal, but a conservative, I experienced firsthand their bias. Ed Baharana had already come out weeks before and gave a glowing review.
Do you want to hear it?
In support of Bob Norris.
Yeah, want to hear the glowing review?
Let's see what he said.
Bob is the best sheriff I think any county in America could have. Just a dynamite individual. He's brought some energy to our community and our county that I don't think any other county gets to experience.
He's brought some energy to our community and our county that I don't think any other county gets to experience.
Now, that was him coming out of a fundraiser for a kickoff campaign of Bob Norris. And in fact, he said, I support Bob so much that I actually wrote him a check. It turned out $100. So
I do want to add too,
a big spender.
Lest we be accused of associating with somebody else, that video was produced in-house.
Yeah.
I know the producer. So I'll take credit for it.
So it's
come after me.
April of 2024. I'm invited to participate with all other elected officials or candidates rather that were running for office with the North Idaho Freedom Fighters, NIF. I showed up. I happened to be the only candidate for sheriff that showed up to this event. Now, we had our county commissioner candidates there. We had state legislator candidates. So it was well represented. But what struck me is, as soon as you and I got there, before the event started, Ed, who I already knew was a supporter of Norris, because several weeks before he came out with that little statement that he just made, and I ended up being approached by Ed right off the bat.
That's right. And I happened to be standing there, so I also heard his declaration to us.
He waddles up and he's like, hey, I'm Ed, and I'm the MC, and I want you to know that I'm going to ask you questions, but I only want to hear about what you're going to do. I don't want to hear anything about, your opponent or his deficiencies or what you're going to do better. You stick to just you and your ideas. This is your time to talk about your ideas.
What's curious about that is, was he, I would love to know in retrospect, was he speaking on his own behalf, or was he speaking on behalf of North Idaho Freedom Foundation?
We know because we talk later on with
then that's where that gets sticky because he was in essence creating the rules of this is how I say this is going to go. And really, should that be his position when he's invited by an organization to come in and MC and handle that? It wasn't a debate, but a forum to hear candidates answer questions.
Now, the rules were pretty simple. The candidates were going to get 30 minutes to have their Q&A, and all the questions were submitted through these little index cards. Now, what Ed didn't realize is that after the event, I was able to obtain all of the sheriff questions that the people had submitted. So I have the entire stack that he had left up there, and I did get permission to take those before he came back up to finish his emceeing. But he had already started emceeing and asking the questions for the state legislators and a couple other of the officials. And when it came to my time, I'm the only one that showed up. And so I was supposed to get 30 minutes. And Ed had this to say: we're going to show you exactly why I'm saying that I don't believe that, especially given Ed Bajarana and his like, even, it could be Don Bradway. These guys don't really want to do the right thing, which is to let everybody have their time and place to speak. They're always going to show their biases. We're going to show you the biases of Ed Bajarana against me, a conservative. Again, 30 minutes is what our time slot. It's not my fault that the other guys didn't show up, but I didn't even get not even 15 minutes total. He left several questions off the board that would have been great questions for a sheriff candidate to answer. And I'm going to show you the ones that he did allow through. And you tell me that this guy's not biased and that the KCRCC group, because Ed is heavily embedded in that KCRCC group, wouldn't do the same thing to the Democrats, the ones that they claim that, we're the party of peace, but you guys are the disruptors. And look, and I'm not for disruption, but what do people do when they can't talk to their legislators in a public format? And look, you electeds need to feel the heat. That's what you're there for. If you don't like the questions, that's part of the job. Stand up, be men and women, and answer the questions. Even if you don't like them, turn the question around. Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest you become like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, so that he may be wise in his own eyes. You guys should be the experts. Let's see what Ed had to say in this collage of the questions that he asked me.
Looks like we've got one sheriff to interview.
Just right. He was coming.
Let me have the whole 30 minutes. I love it.
All right, so what will you do to protect my liberties and freedoms that the current sheriff has not or will not do? I've heard you mention liberty without compromise. How have we been compromised in Kootenai County? What will you do as sheriff to help us, or reverse if possible, all that has been done? Don't shoot the messenger. Just read the questions. Please explain and clarify your derogatory comments regarding the local megachurch, using terms like soy boys with tight-leg pants, using Solowinski tactics, protesting the church. Will you retract your statements and apologize to other Christ followers? Okay, now this one's actually titled for sheriff, but he's not here, so I am going to modify the question because it's a good one, so that Dan can answer it. I hope that's okay. So, would you confiscate the COVID bioweapon vaccines, and would you take porn books out of the library? We've got time for one more question, and then we're going to let you wrap it up here. So, do you think Kootenai County has an issue with human trafficking? And if so, what would you do about it if elected?
So those were the questions as he was going through the index cards that he decided to allow me to answer. Notice the one about the church. Of course, there was more KCRCC folks in that room that were upset. We've already talked about it. My stance on folks that want to market Jesus and use the church as big business.
Let me clarify too, that clip was edited down to the questions only. Dan, when he was live in that forum, North Idaho Freedom Fighters, he did answer those questions. And because we were getting comments on that, I think it was a little bit confusing. But you can see that whole segment and Dan's responses to those questions over on our YouTube channel at the Idaho Sheriff, and it was a little less than 12 minutes, actually. It was just
30,
over
30
minutes.
There were more questions that were good questions, but again, because Ed Bajarana already had his allegiance to the KCRCC that was already out to eliminate me. I mean, I was enemy number one, even though I'm aligned with the majority of what those people, believe in. We're going to show you the slide here of the questions that he chose to not ask me. There was no reason to speed the plow, so to speak. There was 30 minutes, regardless of whether or not those people showed up, the other sheriff candidates.
Right.
People actually submitted their questions, and Ed Bajarana decided, because he didn't want me to talk anymore, that he was going to cut those questions as well. But he made certain to use the questions that would, he thought, embarrass me.
Well, not only that, the questions were when he, as a precursor to you going on stage, prompted you to say, don't talk about your opponent, use this time to talk about yourself and your policies. And then it was interesting to me that 2 or 3 of the questions, you had to be very quick on your feet to know how to turn that, because he's basically like setting a trap, whether or not that was intentional. But it's, what are you going to do that the sheriff's not doing kind of questions? And then what was your ability to answer those without speaking of your opponent necessarily?
Do we have that slide number? We'll throw that one up there. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to have to manually throw mine up since my
Can't
cursor
quite
doesn't
see
work.
it there.
Stand by. All right. So here's question number 1 that he did not allow me to answer. What is a citizen's posse? Are you going to put badges and guns or inexperienced people? Please explain. So that was an excellent question that I should have been able to answer. Number 2, why should the citizens of Kootenai County vote for you? Will you respect every citizen, including conservative, God-loving people, no matter what you believe? Another great question. And then lastly, this was a phenomenal question. Would Dan Wilson be a constitutional sheriff? So, of course, Ed arbitrarily decided to cut the 30 minutes down to 12, 13 minutes.
And really, those were the 3 questions that would have most allowed you to speak on what your ideas and policies would be, and even how you plan to implement those, which the opposition loved to attack you, saying, he's got a lot of these pie in the sky ideas, but how's he going to do any of that? Really, how is he even going to do it?
Yeah. So again, my belief, having experienced the dark side of those that are part of the KCRCC, again, not everybody, there are those inside that are dear friends of mine, but as a whole, under the leadership, if you call it that, of Brent Reagan, dear comrade, dear leader, I experienced it. And as long as Brent Reagan is at the helm of that organization and some of the others that are there on the sidelines, I don't think that any of the Democrats in this county are ever going to get a fair shake by being able to publicly come and respectfully, let me say it again, respectfully, be able to ask their representatives the tough questions, at least that I believe would be tough for them, because they're obviously not happy. They're not being represented in this county. And yeah, I understand that that's the way it goes in a constitutional republic.
Well, and in case this wasn't clear, the trend has been in these sorts of meetings, whether they be sheriff-led town halls, commissioner, KCRCC, or access to your representatives, their monthly meetings. If you have questions, you write them on cards. And then they are completely in control after rifling through cards what they're going to allow to even be asked.
And you know what? Some of that is actually good, because look, some of you folks, you have the right to speak, but you're not succinct. You ramble too much. Get to the point. Although I do that oftentimes here.
Here we are over an hour on Liberty Without Compromise.
Nobody is as succinct as me. But when you're in a town hall, we don't need to understand why your background and such. Just ask the question. So, there is a benefit at times to being able to have those on a card. But yeah,
if you could trust that they were being fairly read. Yeah. I mean, maybe there isn't a way to do that because it's an issue of time. That has not been my observation. Yeah. There's time to do it. And if people really want those questions answered, they'll stay.
Let's put up that slide by Madison. This is a good time to bring up our Madison quote. As you know, that those of you that join our show weekly, that I try to throw in a little wisdom from our founders from time to time for us to remember. So if you're brand new, this is what we do. Madison, the architect of the Constitution, says the right of freely examining public characters and measures and of free communication among the people thereon has ever been justly deemed the only effectual guardian of every other right. You guys need to allow yourselves as representatives to be accessible publicly, privately, small groups, to those that don't align with you. You need to be able to sit down and take the heat, see what you're actually made of. If you're only smart when you're in an echo chamber, or whether or not you can answer questions of those that have opposing views. As a representative, you should have such a solid worldview in your position on anything that you are attempting to legislate or support. You should be able to articulate that and defend your position to those that don't align. And again, it's not mob rule. We're not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. But I think that our representatives right now in Kootenai County have been in the majority for far too long. And as a result, rather than being humble and kind and leading by example, you guys have become little tyrants in your crusade.
Well, and they don't
using
debate.
That word right. Your crusade.
They don't debate.
Your
they
crusade,
don't have to.
like stupid things like trying to enforce or force Bible reading in public schools. Do you guys not read the founders? You're just coming from somebody that loves biblical worldview. You guys have forgotten, though, what the founders had to say and why they were adamant against government forcing religion on people. Now, it doesn't prohibit students from saying, hey, we want to publicly read this. We want a section in the school, or we want to read it over the intercom or whatever else. But this is how bad things have become in Idaho, where you guys have lost that line between legislating things that are morally correct, things that we must do in order to preserve our republic, versus forcing your worldview in certain instances and belief systems on those that do not believe that. And I think that there's a time that we need to have some self-reflection again. And that is why I'm more than willing to talk to anybody and everybody. Prior to Liberty Without Compromise, when I was running for sheriff, everybody thought I was this super, their words, right-wing guy. Mm-hmm. So right-wing that according to one of the power player pastors, I was going to start a revolution or a civil war.
I'm concerned about this guy.
All these things. And my message has been continually the same over and over and over. I have not changed. Show me one instance, one video recording where I have ever changed, and we will play that in its entirety, not just a little soundbite, where I've ever changed my position. That it's our job to protect everybody's rights to life, liberty, and property, regardless of whether or not we believe with their ideology or not.
Well, it's never your argument that changed. It's they have to change their position based on the fact that what they were originally saying didn't hold water, it didn't hold up. So then they're changing their argument because your position has been consistent.
Well, they're acting. And here's my problem. It's not so much the Democrat side that are doing this. It's those that are calling themselves, the MAGA Republicans, where you guys are completely missing that absolutes are absolutes. We don't ever compromise absolutes. We don't compromise life. Life, in my belief, begins at conception. I know that's going to piss off a lot of folks that are, middle of the road, moderate Republicans and definitely the Democrats. But my personal belief in my worldview is everybody is created equal in value under God, and nobody has the right to deprive anybody of life. I also believe that we don't lie, we don't steal. I believe those things that are absolute, that transcend time and places, that are absolutes no matter what, because we didn't make up the absolutes, it's God. But it's those things in between, folks, where I'm willing to listen to other people. And we are a republic, a constitutional representative republic. So, you know what? If you guys are offended that I will listen to somebody else or take a view at times that is contrary, then you know what? We don't have to be enemies. But for the rest of you that are treating anybody else like an enemy just because they don't believe exactly the way you do, you would have never survived the Constitutional Convention. The founders, Madison, would have eaten you alive. Jefferson would have eaten you alive. Go back and read James Madison. See what he had to say about forced religion. It's not a good thing. And about absolute power. In KCRCC, it's a good thing that the North Idaho Republicans are coming back in, because when you are not continually challenged, you're not on your game, you become tyrannical, you become out of touch. And as we all know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's time for Brent Reagan to go and a bunch of his minions around him. And I hope that they're very successful in getting him unseated. I have a feeling that this entire debacle at the Republican Central Committee town hall that took place is going to be the undoing. I would suspect it. In fact, it's my understanding that one of the PCs is representing Norris and others from the county, because as I've been told just a few days ago, that the Lake City Law Group is the ICRIMP representatives right here in Kootenai County. So,
and we got a question, if you can hold that book up one more time.
Yeah.
Hold it up kind of like near your face a little bit, because I switched to that other camera. And we're getting ready to wrap up here tonight. I do want to leave on a slightly more, a little bit of a lighter, funnier topic. Yeah. And we'll just touch on it briefly. So I want to put this picture up on the screen, and I want you to help me out on this one, right, so I get it all right. But we got this guy, Mike Bauer.
Captain Mike Bauer.
He ran for sheriff, Kootenai County, in 2020.
And again in the primary last year, 24.
Against Robert Bob Norris. So here Mike Bauer is in a photograph with President Ronald Reagan. And probably that was on Bauer's social media when he was campaigning for sheriff at the time. And so as a response to this, we have a guy running for sheriff in Kootenai County, Robert Bob Norris, who he had to decide and put up on his social media. Reagan is, of course I can't, Reagan is finally next to the real Republican candidate for sheriff, Robert Bob Norris. Okay. So, what we find, because we talked about this last week, we're getting a call now. We got like no time left. We talked about this last week, but we had same guy, Bob Norris. I think it was really bugging them for a year, and they tried to come after you for it, that you were the Idaho sheriff. Yeah. The Idaho sheriff. So yeah, last week's episode, we go, what is this? Look what I stumbled across. Robert Bob Norris. He's the real Idaho sheriff. He's gonna like stake his claim on that one. And the point of this being that for years, this guy has demonstrated that he seems to kind of chase behind his opposition and assume whatever that identity is. He doesn't seem to have any intrinsic, what are your beliefs? What are your motivations? How do you identify?
Your law and order sheriff.
Yeah, there you go. But just, it's a funny thing. He's on a winning streak, all right. And he just can't stand, he cannot seem to stand that there is somebody else. Yeah.
Is the most sincerest form of flattery.
And not to mention that doesn't even touch on the Colonel Sanders outfit. But yeah, so I wanted to have a little bit of fun with that, because that was circulating social media. I didn't even realize that happened back in 2020. I'm like, well, this guy clearly, one of his things is the best indicator of future performance is past.
Based on your past performance.
I like that. Those are your trends.
Well, we're going to see what
Sheriff
happens in
Norris.
this coming month.
Yeah.
I think they have a couple court dates for the Penny Ann Collinson lawsuit against Norris and the county. And we're going to probably, I would suspect, see something from attorney Wendy Olson, who's representing Teresa Bornpole. We'll see how secure Kootenai County Republican Central Committee is in their argument that this is that event was a private event and that the security were operating within the bounds of the rules of engagement and within the law, so on and so forth.
We want you to head on over to libertywithoutcompromise.com. We've got the new cowboy collection in apparel. We're starting to see our shirts and hats out around town, Liberty Without Compromise. Oh. This is a new edition, so you can purchase men's, women's, different styles, hats, aprons, bandanas, and other accessories, coffee mugs, all that good stuff. libertywithoutcompromise.com.
Did we give a plug for our op-eds? And
you can also on the website, we've got some really great articles by our contributing author, Linda Cook. Mm-hmm. And then we also encourage you to go there if you would like to submit an op-ed. You've got something that is just, you're burning. You're not going to call into the program because that might be a little bit frightening, but you want to submit your opinion, and it can be in response to something we've said here on our program or something else that's going on in the political, social, spiritual arena here in Kootenai County, and submit that op-ed right there on our website, libertywithoutcompromise.com.
Next week, we are going to talk about House Bill 398 in the Idaho legislature that has divided North Idaho representatives, some for it, some against, what it does to lobbying and those that are getting paid to promote others on social media under the table, and why that's not necessarily a good thing. So we're going to look into that. We're going to debate it a little. I know that my friend Teresa is suspicious of it. She's always smart.
Yeah.
Remember to pray for those that are having tough times right now. I think of my friend Matt, who's not only dealing with health issues, but the loss of a loved one. Thinking of Jim, who is really down with his health. He needs lots of prayers. So does Ron. Many of you out there, pray for those that are having tough times. Be thankful for what you have. For those of you who don't know my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, get you a Bible and read the book of John. It's easy to read. If you want to know Jesus, you want to know more about him and what he believed, what he had to say for those of us that believe and how to believe in him, read the book of John. It's an excellent read. Otherwise, remember to be strong and of good courage. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for joining us tonight on the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast. Again, visit our website, libertywithoutcompromise.com, where you can watch past episodes and view exclusive reports on Kootenai County political power players. And for our podcast, you can listen and subscribe wherever it is that you get your shows. Remember your midday squares, 15% off. Dan and I are going to load up. We're going to do our order this week and get those back in stock. And that link for 15% off is here in the comments section. Anything else I forgot?
I'm just glad this night's over.
If you head to Seattle, Storyville Coffee, it was a mess. I was going to say it was a hot mess. No, it was a cold mess.
I think I'm going to go light this cigar.
It's time for that.